Well, on the other side, I mean, all the attention has been on the Republicans in the last CNBC debate. In fact, the RNC has scrapped an NBC debate scheduled for next year after last week's debate. Josh, pretty much every candidate seemed to complain about the moderator's, quote, bias, but was the CNBC debate really more skewed than any of the other debates?
I don't think so in the least. In fact, now I will say this. The one thing that's hard to defend about the CNBC debate is how much of a shit show it was in terms of production. It was poorly produced. The moderators didn't have control. I mean, people just talking over each other, and the moderators looked helpless. The other thing, too, is there were some moments where candidates, they didn't have the correct sourcing for their questions. So I think that was an experience. I don't know if any of them had moderated a debate before. But in terms of CNBC is the Wall Street Network. That's not, it's not MSNBC. It's a network that should have perhaps maybe been more policy focused on the economy, but in no way was it any different than the Fox debate or the CNN debate. But to be fair, the GOP candidates complained about that too.
Peter is asking candidates pointed questions about their past quotes, screw-ups, and policies biased.
No, of course not. And the tougher the questions, the better the debate. I mean, it makes better television if you're just looking at it from a cold-hearted network perspective. And the point of these things is to let us get to know a little bit about the candidates in a less structured environment than the candidate, him or herself, simply talking to us the way that they do when they go out on the campaign trail, where it's basically a one-way dialogue. CNBC really kind of blew it in so many ways, and Josh touched on them. I mean, one of the things that needs to happen is the Republican pool needs to thin down. It's very difficult to play traffic cop when you've got, 8 or 10 different people up there. Jim Webb has taught every candidate in every debate to whine about how much speaking time he or she gets, and that you could kind of chop out a certain number of minutes from the whole debate where it was just candidates saying it's my turn to talk, it's my turn to talk. That needs to be really wrestled in either by a moderator that's a lot stronger, or simply by kind of thinning the field out and saying, look, it's now time for us to parse these people. I think the other thing would be that CNBC tried too hard for, I hate to say the word gotcha moments because I don't like that term, but if you're going to accuse somebody of something, a political candidate on national television of something, you got to have your A game. You've got to have your pieces together. You've got to have your details together, and you've got to be able to answer them back. When you accuse Ben Carson of shilling for some fake drug company, and Ben says, no, that's not true, you've got to be ready to answer that. You've got to be able to support your question and not just let him get away with that. I think there was one with Rubio as well. So hopefully
Trump,
whoever... Yeah.
I was just going to say there was that moment where Becky Quick said to Trump, you called Marco Rubio Mark Zuckerberg's personal secretary from, and Trump said, no, I didn't, but it was his actual website. Like, it came from the website.
Oh,
well, that alone
is... Someone go in and find the exact quote. They did do that later on in the show.
Right, you've got to have that. I mean, that's sort of debating 101. You don't challenge the other side unless you've got those facts at hand. It was on your website on this date. Even have a graphic or something available if necessary. So it was kind of an amateur effort, and the candidates, they smell blood in the water quicker than any of us, and they went after the host. We'll see what happens next. I mean, I thought actually the Fox debate, which most people in advance anticipated to be extremely soft and partisan, I think they actually asked some decent questions in that debate. So it's going to be interesting where the next debate is held and what the moderators do. Being America and being TV, it's very possible that, Sarah Palin will host the next debate, and in the middle of the show, Huckabee is going to walk off stage and sit with the moderators and ask some other questions, and the whole thing will evolve into some sad political theater, even sadder than it is now. And that would be a shame.
I hope they bring in hologram Reagan.
Baby Hitler and hologram Reagan.
Discussing
the pizza rat comes on with a yeah, what do you think about the pizza rat minority? Are their rights going to be supported if you're president? So, all right, I'll shut up.
I'll make a quick point about this, though. While you two were saying that you didn't think the debate was that biased, I wouldn't say it was overly biased, but there were some moments where they asked terrible questions that had nothing to do with politics, and maybe they're doing it for views. But, like, for example, what comic book character are you? I think was to Trump. And then to Kasich, what two people here do you hate or something? And they were just questions that had no substance to them. And I'm not a Ted Cruz supporter by any means. I dislike him a lot. But he made a good point when he came out and said, like, look at these kind of questions you're asking us. How can you expect us to take this debate seriously when we're being asked these types of questions? And that was the one time where I actually found myself agreeing with something that Ted Cruz said. And that's a rare moment, I think, for anyone.
It's a scary moment there. But keep in mind, in the Democratic debate, they asked, which enemy, who's someone who's an enemy of yours that you're most proud of, which in fact brought out the bizarro side of Jim Webb. And we talked about, murdering the Vietnamese guy or something like that. And I think it was the first Republican debate where they went round robin about what your Secret Service code name might be if you're president. So,
oh, God. Remember Chris Christie said a Care Bear name? He said Trueheart. It was my favorite thing. It's like it's a Care Bear, like a big rainbow heart. It's the gayest Care Bear of them all, and I love that he said that. I had no idea.
They corrected that after the show, and he changed it to Knockwurst. So they wanted to go back and review. But, so I mean, there's these kind of...
If we wanted to embarrass the candidates more, asking them tough policy questions would actually accomplish that rather than the silly questions that they asked. Because
to be fair,
they're going to get destroyed by them.
Oh, shit, we're NBCing right now.
Go ahead,
I was just going to say, to be fair, I think that the comic book villain question was poorly phrased, but that was a good question because he was saying.
See, I haven't had enough time to talk. I haven't had enough time to talk. Josh has mentioned my name 17 and a half
What's
times.
the rules on how we jump in? My point is that they were asking Trump how he was going to do the ridiculous things he was going to do. The same thing with John Kasich. He just came out the day before and said he had it with the front runners. So that was a relevant question, too. I mean, again, maybe not the deepest, most substantive ones, but I remember there was, when Marco Rubio attacked the media, it was on a policy question. And it escapes me at the moment what exactly the question was. But, they were saying, ask us policy questions. Would ask, say, a policy question, and Rubio. So, I mean, that's Republican 101, attacking the media.
Football question.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I'm not saying that they didn't ask some good ones, but when you're asking, and the Chris Christie response to that cracks me up even now. I can still watch it. But, I mean, it's not a necessary question. Sure, it's an industry that maybe needs a bit of regulation, but to focus on it in a national debate is a little sad, and it shows kind of how dumbed down some of the questions were.
Right.
Well, that is a fair point.
I was waiting for one of the candidates to really just turn that around and say, why are you even asking me about comic book characters? Let's talk about something important like my plan for Medicare or something.
Oh, they're afraid to actually have to answer those questions, though.
Well, the good point there. But, throw it right back at them and say, it's a silly, irrelevant question. Let's have a little more respect for the voters. I think
that's what Ted Cruz accomplished a little bit with his comment.
Yeah.
Josh, since last week's debate, the campaigns have really been squabbling with the RNC. What does that rift say about the candidates' relationship with their own party?
I think that it has to do with the anti-establishment sort of bias that's going on with the voters. I think that it looks good. They're attacking Washington. Now they're attacking the RNC. They're not owned by anybody. They're crusading for the people. And Reince Priebus, his job, or at least the way he's run his job, has been to be whatever the candidates need. If he's an attack dog, he'll attack. If he's got to be the punching bag, he'll be the punching bag. It's kind of why he's, after Michael Steele, he stayed at the RNC. He's holding the job like a Pope or a Roosevelt, at least. So I don't think that the RNC and the campaigns have any tension beyond the fact that, Trump I don't think they were really keen on Trump being the front runner, and I think they'll be happy when he's not, if he's not. But I definitely think that the debate stuff in general, it's going to backfire big time, because while media bias is great for other conservative media or, even some conservative candidates, when you're trying to like weasel your way out of a debate or whatever, people, that stinks to people. That looks like you have something to hide rather than you're demanding respect.
Well, I mean, what is it that they want? I mean, we're talking about, making sure that the moderators are like registered Republicans, but I mean, I'm sure that the Fox News panel was pretty heavily Republican. I mean, even if Fox News is too biased for them, what exactly do they want, Peter?
I think they want softballs that will just simply give them an opportunity to go to their talking points. And not have to worry about being asked a question that's going to make them uncomfortable, put them on the spot, or give their opponent some kind of advantage. It's very unrealistic, and I think they don't really understand, as you pointed out, how silly and weak it makes them look. People like to see these candidates look strong. Not necessarily call each other funny names or, to each other like, kind of the Bush and Rubio thing last time. But, stand up, look strong, make a good point, answer a tough question, or at least appear to answer a tough question. And I think they're going to spoil it for themselves and chase away the audience. I mean, keep in mind what a wonderful opportunity this is for people like Kasich or Ted Cruz, who don't get as much mainstream media as the others. This is their chance to really put themselves out there in front of the electorate. And if they help the big candidates, Carson and Trump, blow this, then, they're really shooting themselves in the foot. It would be a shame.
Remember at the end of 2012, when we went through that, like, revolving door of front runners, and I think that was even after the first primary, but maybe it was before. The timing, I don't remember. But either way, every single change that happened came the day after a debate. Rick Perry had his oops moment. He was gone. Then Gingrich was in. Then the next debate, Gingrich fucked up. And, Mitt Romney finally ascended. So, and the other thing that's interesting, too, is the next debate is on the Fox Business Network. It would be really interesting because Fox Business is like way more in the tank conservative-wise than even Fox News in general. So it would be amazing if they came hard as hell at the next debate. Like if they come in and start kissing their asses, which I think they might do just because the candidates will start coming on Fox Business more. But if they really want to maybe make a name for themselves and show up CNBC, they should come hard at the candidates and make them sweat on that stage.
Well, Eric, who do you think looked best and who looked worse on that debacle of a stage that we saw on CNBC?
It's a tough question because they're all kind of goofy in their own way. I think one moment for Marco Rubio where he performed well was when he deflected Jeb Bush when he came after him for missing the Senate votes. I thought Rubio performed very well there. I thought that he would melt down and it would probably be the end of Rubio, but it wasn't. He pushed it away. He turned it on Bush, made Bush look foolish, and then moved on from there. Donald Trump was Donald Trump. I mean, it's what we expected from him in that debate. I don't think there was anything.
I thought he was actually more toned down than usual in this past debate.
Well, I feel like, but now that he's basically secured a block of voters, his campaign managers are obviously feeding him into like, okay, you need to tone down this rhetoric a little bit, turn this up. They're basically fine-tuning him to be a more palatable candidate. Whether they can do that before the election, will remain to be seen. But I think, that we will see him emerge from the crowd.
Peter, who do you think came away looking best? Who came away looking the worst?
Certainly, maybe not looking the worst, but certainly coming out of the debate the worst was Jeb Bush. This is a guy who started months ago with all the advantages, the name, the money, track record. He could pick and choose between his father and his brother's presidencies to focus on certain issues, and he just flubbed that up incredibly. These debates have been a chance for him to push back against the image that he's a loser, and he has not done that at all. If anything, he's encouraged people to see him as a loser. In terms of winners, as Eric pointed out, there were a lot of losers, but I guess Rubio would be near the top of people who kind of helped themselves in this debate. You know, Rubio is laying out a position for himself where once Bush is gone and some of these smaller candidates disappear, Rubio is saying, I'm just going to wait here. I'm going to wait for Trump, you guys to get tired of Trump. I'm going to wait for everyone to figure out that Ben Carson really doesn't have anything to say. And when you're ready for a mainstream Republican candidate that was good on TV, that speaks well, and that maybe has a chance of standing next to Hillary as an equal, you know, I'll just be over here waiting and try not to make too many mistakes in the interim. So, yeah, Rubio up, Bush down. Everybody else kind of hovered about where I expected them to be.
Josh, do you agree?
I do agree with what Peter said, but in the interest of being different, I'm going to pick two different names. In terms of who came out of it looking the worst, well, if you can call it looking, because he was basically invisible, was Rand Paul. I mean, I had to check twice during the middle of the debate if he dropped out in a commercial break, because, you know, I can't remember even one moment of him speaking other than saying, what's the rule on how we respond here? So he needs, and he was one of the earliest people to, you know, basically declare his candidacy. And then once he officially declared, it was like a nosedive right into the AstroTurf. He's not done anything, and I think is the least, he's had the worst time of it so far, but he definitely really lost in that debate because people didn't even know he was there. And in terms of coming out looking good, again, Rubio, I think he clearly won, and I think he's definitely going to do what Peter said, which I like to describe as the rope-a-dope, but you just hang back until everyone crashes and burns, and then you're just there as the adult in the room. But I also think Christie, he kept himself alive with both the media answer that we talked about earlier and in the aftermath of the debate. He was one of the first ones to tell everyone else to quit their bitching and just debate. And I think that is sort of, because since Trump stole his whole shtick, that whole, like, I'm a blunt, you know, not politically correct guy, hard time carving out a place for himself, no pun intended, then, you know, and I think that kept him alive. So I think he had some good moments in that debate, and in the aftermath, if he's going to stick around, it's because of that.
All right, well, let's
honestly, I forgot about Rand Paul. It was what you said is not really a joke. I mean, this is a guy who, again, like Jeb Bush, months ago, a year ago, was talked about as kind of a big deal. You know, his filibuster against the NSA, some of his more progressive stands, the idea that he represented, you know, a new kind of Republican-type candidate. This was what people were talking about, and boy,
and he had the built-in coalition from his father. Like, his father's supporters were just waiting for Ron Paul too, and they got in front of an aircraft carrier.
And he looks almost pained to be up there, somewhere between bored and constipated. It's almost, you feel bad for him. I really just want to say, look, you can sit down if you want, you know, if this isn't working out, just have a seat. It'll be okay.
Oh, Eric, I mean, at what point do some of these guys start dropping out? Because, I mean, if you're Rand Paul and your poll numbers haven't budged above 1% for like a month, at what point do you call it quits?
I guess they're waiting to see if either Carson or Trump implodes, or they're staying out of pride because Trump keeps challenging them, telling them to quit, and so maybe they don't want to quit to bow down to that.